everybody. Welcome back. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to another edition of Shave 'em to Save 'em and the Livestock Conservancy's Woolly Wednesday program. Very happy for you all to be here and joining us today. We have a very special guest. I'm Cindra. I am the Shave 'em to Save 'em coordinator and your host for this talk today. Before we get to the chat, I just want to do a little busy work, a little shout out. I want to thank all of our members, our ambassadors, our donors at the Livestock Conservancy. They are who are making this programming available for you today. And if you have been enjoying our programming, all of our species chats, our Woolly Wednesdays, our Shave 'em to Save 'em challenges, please feel free to show us your support by becoming a member. You can follow this link right here to the Livestock Conservancy to find out all about the different types of memberships we have. You can also link from there to donations if you'd like to give us a donation. And if you are interested in learning more about the Shave 'em to Save 'em program, if you're not already enrolled as a fiber artist or a fiber provider, you can hop on over to rarewool.org and get all the details there. We would love to have you join the program because it's a really fun program. And if you haven't already seen, I'm wearing a little Shave 'em to Save 'em swag today. If you've got to have a t-shirt of your own or a bag or a hat, you can check out our Cafe Press store and get anything with this Shave 'em to Save 'em logo that's in the store. Everything from coffee mugs to travel tumblers to t-shirts to the long sleeve I have on today to canvas bags. Feel free to advertise for the program. All right, well, without further ado, I want to introduce our guest. Let me have her join me here. Welcome, Katja.
Hi.
Katja, I'm gonna take a stab at it here. Ekimian? Is that how you pronounce your last? Okay, Katya Ekimian. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're super excited. I've been looking forward to this chat with you for quite some time now. Katja, just to give you a little background, and I'll let Katja say more, but Katja is a Livestock Conservancy ambassador. She is a 2019 graduate, is that correct? 2020 graduate of Parsons Institute of Design in New York. Katja is a knitwear designer, and she is using rare breeds in her designs. So, Katja, tell us a little bit more, because I think I had more to say about you, but I think it makes much more sense for you to tell us about yourself than for me to do it.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm just so glad to be able to be a part of the Livestock Conservancy and finding out what you guys do and all your programs that you offer. And it's such an incredible resource that you guys are for people to get involved with, and you're very hands-on. And so I started working with you guys during my senior year of Parsons, during my thesis project when I wanted to create a knitwear collection. I was really interested in wool already at the point because I was like working on a farm a few summers before, and I just think wool is the most incredible fiber, as I think we all do. And then I wanted to really use the community around me and everyone around me to create a fiber. And that's when I got linked up with you guys to help source my wool. And I remember I was given a bunch of lists of farmers that raise these endangered breeds. And then I ended up just calling all of them and traveling all over to meet them, stay with them, shear their sheep, get their wool, which was so much fun. And then once I had all this raw wool, I had to spin it. So that was another chapter in the story. And then I graduated, and it was during COVID. So it was a little rocky. But now I'm still continuing to do that. I'm working on a new batch of yarns, all from Santa Cruz sheep, which is a critically endangered breed. And then, I was just the past 2 months with a sheep shearer and butcher out in Pennsylvania, and learning all about their practices and trades. So currently, yeah, that's what I'm working on.
So you've been busy shearing this spring, or just kind of observing?
I sheared like a bunch of sheep, probably like maybe 15, 20. I was nice. Like, so they took me along. It was a married couple, the Sugarts. They raised Santa Cruz sheep out in Newville, Pennsylvania. And so I was just there at the start of shearing season, and I just tagged along to all their jobs, which was so much fun. And I would collect the wool. And then a few times I would be like, all right, put me in. Like, I want to shear. Like, I want to try it.
Uh-huh.
So I ended up shearing a few, went all right. So it was a lot of fun. And I think I just, just once you are hands-on in an experience like that, it really gives you a better understanding of how hard these people work and how much of like a craft and art it is.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
like in the works.
So you are actually living and or working on a farm as well right now, right?
Yeah, I'm back in my apartment in New York right now,
Oh,
but
okay.
that was, I was out there collecting this wool, which I'll then take down to chargers, to be washed and scoured.
Hmm.
Um, and so I'm constantly going between the city and farms, because I feel like that's like the correct balance to have. Um, and uh, Yeah, so and I was working on a farm a while ago. I think I was just super interested, in just yarn and knitting, and I was like, I want to know where this comes from. Um, and then through you guys, I was able to meet so many other amazing farmers as well, to source their wool and learn about all about heritage breeds, and seeing how much these farmers care about, just like the pure genetics of these breeds is so amazing, and seeing all they do to keep breeding them, to keep their genetics pure and a really like sound and beautiful breed is also really nice.
Hmm. So you've been taken with Santa Cruz, it sounds like. How did, was that location, was that love for that fiber over any of the others? Was it availability? Like, how did you narrow down to working with this couple that's raising Santa Cruz?
I think it was definitely all of what you had just mentioned. I had never met them before, and Jeanette gave me a phone number, and I called them, and I said, "Hey, this was last year in January. I was like, "Hey, I'm traveling to the Midwest. I'd love to collect some of your wool." And we had a really nice chat. And then he said, "There's also a bunch of farms in the area that also have Santa." Um, there was a man, Mike Kearney, that had a flock, and then he ended up selling off parts of it.
Mhm.
So then I went out there, and they had said, "Well, actually, like, do you want to stay a few days?" I was like, "Yeah," So, and they're really amazing, and I also love them is because they're so young. They're like 25 and 28, the Sugars,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it's so it's so much fun to be with people like around your age who are, and also like a little bit intimidating, because it's like I have like an art degree and you have an entire farm. It's really interesting. And
Different
so
sides of the same coin.
yeah, exactly. They were like, "We want to come to New York and ride the subway," and I was like, "I want to come with you guys." I was like, "We can trade." Like, um, and so I think, and then I think Santa Cruz sheep are also very adorable. They're just like a tiny little breed. I mean, you obviously know that. And I think they're very sweet. And the story behind these sheep that like come to these islands and that are left there, like they have a great historic story to them. Um,
Mhm.
and what's interesting is the wool is so elastic, which I also thought was great. Um, and yeah, and it was just so much fun because we traveled around to all these farms in their area that also had these sheep, and they were all Amish and Mennonite farms. And then I got to learn about their farming practices, and it was so interesting to see how the same breed of sheep in the same area is raised so differently, how their wool is so like just can be like texturally differently,
Hmm.
just how they're cared for. So that was really interesting to see. And then I had the wool spun, at Battenkill Fiber Mills, which I'm sure so many people are familiar with.
One
And
of our
then
sponsors.
what? And then
Yeah.
Mad River Fiber Mill in Vermont. And then also seeing how these two different artisans treated the wool as well was so much fun. Um, so yeah, and then just now, this past 2 months, I just got back to the city. Um, I was talking with the Sugars, a while ago, and they're like, "Oh, like come out and visit us," and I was like, "Yeah, like I'd love to." And then I told my roommate I'd be gone for. I was like, "I'll be gone for the weekend." Like I had like two pairs of clothes, and I was like, "I'll be back." And then it was
Mhm.
2 months later. I was just
Nice, nice. So I'm super curious, Katya. You talked about the differences in the farming practices between the Shugarts or the other farm, I guess traditional farmers in the area versus the Amish and the Mennonite farmers, and how the wool fiber might be a little different between the two. Can you dive into that a little bit about the differences between the practices?
um like one of the main factors is like even like the cleanliness level of the wool, and like sheep that are in a barn more often than out in pasture, and then ones that are always out in pasture, um
Hmm.
whether they're like laying down more like with burrs. I think that and especially um how often they're bred, or if they kept wethers. Like I'm learning a lot more about like breeding sheep now. um but the reason so many fiber farms keep wethers, which are for those at home that don't know, are like fixed male sheep, and they produce the best wool because they don't go through all the hormonal changes that ewes have when they're giving birth or carrying a lamb. So their wool is just so much nicer, and there's not a lot of breakage that's going on. Um, and then to just see like the difference in their diet and the color, and like just kind of like these tinges like that, was so interesting. And then I know that um, one of the farms had bred, they had like two or three sheep that were bred with like a black face cross. So you kind of just see their wools coming together, which is so interesting. Yeah.
Nice. Let's backpedal a little bit because I really wanted to find out, like, how did little Katya get interested in fashion? How did you travel down this path? How did you get here to where you are today?
Um, I think it's just fashion is so much fun. And I think just like as a young girl, like it's so amazing. And then um I grew up in Egypt, and so you couldn't get like the American clothes that everyone was wearing at the time. And this was like in high school, and like we all wanted like whatever we saw on like Instagram and stuff like that. And so we started like making our own clothing and like prom dresses and stuff like that. Like everyone wanted like the Sherry Hill like prom dresses and like those like type. Um, so I ended up making clothes for a lot of my friends. And it was just something I really loved to do. And then the kind of just next natural step was going to Parsons. And again, it's such, like seeing Project Runway as a kid is so much fun. So um, I ended up going there, and then I kind of started to realize, like, seeing how garments are made at, especially like when you're in college, a lot of things you learn is like, how will you mass produce this garment? How will you, sell
Mhm.
these garments? And it kind of bogged me down a little bit, like seeing what goes into like the industry side of it. And just the amount of waste, and the care, like the little care that goes into the materials, and how easy it is to like greenwash something. Like the words like sustainability and stuff like that like really don't mean much in the fashion world because it's
Mhm.
harder to regulate. um and so that's when I focused way deeper on fibers themselves, which ended up being wool. And I think I always just loved wool, like, because it's just so it feels nice, and like it's not plastic. So
Mhm.
then I think it was the summer after my second year of university, I just started like calling farms, like, can I come work for you? Like, will you give me a job? Like, I'll cook and like take care of your kids, if you let me live with you. And this one farm in Massachusetts was like, yeah, sure. So I spent a summer on their farm. And even just after seeing that, just like totally switched gears in my mind of how I wanted to approach designing,
Mhm.
um, and how much like more fulfilling it felt to make a garment where um you're impacting the people directly around you, whether it's like, because I mean their yarn is made, it's washed at Chargers, and it's spun at Bartlett, like, so and they're people that I call my family. So I'm seeing an immediate impact on like a large, like a semi larger scale. um and the clothing just felt amazing because a nice wool sweater just feels so luxurious and like just really like, a timeless item.
Mhm.
Um, and so then after that, I ended up interning for the Woolmark company, which is really interesting to see how that works. But obviously, it's only Australian merino wool. And then learning about what you guys, and then that was like in my mind, I was like, this is the best thing ever, like the Woolmark company, and it still is amazing. And then um, meeting you guys and hearing about all these other breeds that aren't merino really just got again like another switch of gears, just like realizing what was going on and about like the biodiversity or the lack of biodiversity in our wool system, and that American wool, like the price of American wool is so low, which bums me. Like everything about it just makes me sad when it's like the most incredible fiber. Um, and I think it's just, I don't know. I just like went kind of crazy about it. I don't know. Yeah, like people ask that, and I feel like like telling you why I love it, like is like very understandable. I don't know. I just love sheep, and then they're like, "Oh, she's crazy." Like, what is she doing?
Sheep are fabulous. I totally understand
Yeah,
that. And it must have felt like you're after working, doing the apprenticeship with Woolmark or the internship with Woolmark, to then learn that there were other breeds of sheep that were providing a
yeah,
varied textures, varied colors, varied personality, and the sheep must
exactly,
have just like totally opened your world up again in another fascinating way.
exactly. And again, I love wool. I love merino wool. But then people just see that word merino and just assume it's like synonymous with like cashmere and it's like the softest fiber, and somehow people are now only wearing these like very soft blend. And I think people, what they don't realize is that wool has so many other uses in outerwear, carpet, there's so many
Mhm.
other uses, and these breeds really highlight that. And so what I tried to do during my thesis collection was create a collection of garments, and then each garment would be made from a singular breed, and the function of the garment would highlight the properties of the wool of that specific sheep. So like the Santa Cruz is very elastic, and is, since they're like a coastal animal, they're really good at regulating humidity, as is all wool. But I wanted to make like a track suit with it. Um, and then I used sorry, I'm blanking on uh oh, and I use like Catskill Merino, which again is a merino breed, but is from upstate New York. So,
It's local.
yeah, exactly. It's local. Um, to create another garment for this woman, and they all just, and then I did with the Lincoln long wool, which is a very like lustrous, like coarser, higher micron or lower micron. Yeah, no, high micron is thick.
Yeah,
Okay, okay, okay.
yeah.
um, with a higher micron, um,
Less soft.
less
Yeah,
soft, exactly.
yeah.
Um, so I used it to make an outerwear piece. I worked with
Mhm.
Madeline Long,
Mhm.
who does the vegetarian Viking wool. So
Mhm.
I worked with her to create this like outerwear piece, which was a lot of fun. Um,
Do
and
we have
and
that?
one of the things I also really wanted to highlight was the craft and skill of so many people beyond farmers in the community. So dyers, weavers, spinners, all these people. And also like another side of it was um like how the craft of knitting is seen as so like docile and like matronly and like all these things, and people call it crafty, or like when you see these incredibly made garments people call it crafty. But then like to go a little bit deeper, it's like, but when a man does something like this, it's called a trade or a skill, but only when like a woman creates these dainty objects, it's seen as a craft and not like a trade or an art form.
Mhm.
People put it into different categories. And
Mhm.
I've even been in like crit meetings where people are like, well, isn't this a little crafty? And I'm like, this is an incredible art form. So there's like that
Yeah.
label that I'm trying to get rid of. And so I wanted to create garments that have this insane skill and labor put into them, but taking it out of that like crafty, like name, because
Hmm.
at a certain point it is insulting, it is diminishing of the work that goes into it.
Hmm.
um and so I wanted the people that I wanted to dress, and the people that I still like to dress, are everyone from all walks of culture and background and profession, to not put a limit really on any part of the clothing or the part of the cycle. Yeah,
Hmm.
that
Yeah,
makes sense.
wool's for everybody.
Rules for
Yeah.
everybody.
And you've designed for some famous folks, right? You've been out there in some big events. Tell us about that.
um, I I knitted a dress from wool for the Met Gala in
Wow.
2019, um, which was so much fun. And I just didn't. It was like pushing my own boundaries as well as like knitting a full like gown and then with wool, and then I ended up embellishing it as well. And I think that was just such a fun moment, and it's truly something I'll never forget doing. Um, and then having people see it and then me being like, oh, it's wool. Like, it's not this like itchy like sweater. Like people don't understand um just this, they're just moving beyond like a sweater, or sorry, there's a cloud, my lighting has changed. Um, just putting it in so many different contexts to really make it more accessible to people. So yeah, everyone can enjoy it. Everyone isn't just automatically thinking of like a shawl or a sweater or something.
Hmm. How long did it take you to knit that? And did you knit it by hand or machine or?
On my flatbed machine. So it's still pretty I mean, it's not plugged in, so it's like analog. And then the hardest part was creating, because it was done with like a Fair Isle jacquard pattern. So I had to like punch out the pattern and test that multiple times. I had probably like 20 different punch patterns. And I was tweaking those. And then I knitted the swatch. And then so I knitted with two strands. It was the wool and then like a mylar lurex yarn, but it wasn't, because lurex is normally like blended with like another strand. It was just like pure mylar, um, which gave that shine. And then I then was like knitting swatches and then with the measurements. And then I think the longest time was spent, I basically drew the entire dress like to scale on grid paper, like with all the stitches. Cause I was like, there's no way I'm like messing this up.
Wow.
So that took the longest time. I mean, obviously there's smarter ways to do it. I would like to know how, if someone could tell me. So, yeah. And I think stuff like that, and you're doing 7 + 7, but then you still take out your calculator to make sure. Like that's how like I approach knitwear. um, and then after it was done, there were so many different like tweaks at the end, and I was like putting binding, like I would knit like a tighter gauge binding to put around the hemline, and I even put like weights in it, and then embellished it with rhinestones. Um, and the whole time it was scary, like sewing on rhinestones and try not to snag it on the knit.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, but I think I knitted the entire dress, because once you have the pattern done, you just kind of go. In maybe like 7 hours, like a full day of knitting.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's quite the undertaking between all the design steps, which sounds like that was more involved than the actual knitting, was the actual
Yeah.
planning phase.
And I
Yeah.
remember having like a full blown like breakdown after I took it off the machine, because I don't know if anyone's a machine knitter, but it's like it's so shriveled and it's like all like gross looking. I had to like block it all, then like see my I was like, this is horrible. And I made the mistake of showing it I thought it would be cute to send the woman up like a progress pic of like, here's what I'm knitting. And she was like, that looks so small. I was like, no. And then she was like freaking out. And I was like, lesson learned, like never show anyone like, your
Progress.
progress pics. Yeah.
Very good lesson. So you said you've been working with Santa Cruz and having that processed at Bat and Kill, I think it was. That was being, or was that being, okay. So
Last, oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, so what are your plans with the wool now?
With the wool now, so over the past 2 months, I was like posting a lot, and I really think, and it's hard. Like I go in and out of like losing a lot of followers and then gaining a ton because I post really, or I want to share like really raw things of what I do, and it includes like slaughtering lambs and like how farms do this.
Hmm.
Um, and obviously, like I'm talking to the wrong group of people right now because everyone knows like what you gotta do. But it's hard when like people just follow you and then see you like at a butcher shop or doing like a home kill where you're like, this is actually the more humane way to do it.
Hmm.
Well, that's a little iffy, but I mean that's to each their own. But and so I was just trying to post a lot about what I do, and during that process, I was talking a lot about wool, and these breeds, and everyone's like, how can I work with these breeds? Like, where can I buy this yarn? And I was like, I'm gonna make this yarn. So that's my goal. So now I have quite a bit of wool sitting at my friend's barn in Pennsylvania. And this summer, I'm going to truck it down. And it's like a couple thousand pounds. It's like a lot of wool. Um, and then I'm going to truck it down to Chargers because what I also learned is that that's where pretty much I mean, not all the work. I obviously don't have a full extent of knowledge of what goes on in the spinning mill. I would
Hmm.
love to, but to my limited knowledge, the amount of work that goes into washing the wool and scouring it is just so intense. And so if I were to give that quantity because most mills like Bat and Kill or, Bartlett, or Mad River, all these places will wash it for you, and they do it all on site, all these processes. But it doesn't make sense for this amount of quantity and at a price point. So I'm trying to figure out
Hmm.
what's the smoothest system to do all this, where the mill isn't backed up with washing this thousands pounds, and then I'm getting a better price of how to do it. So the cheapest way is to send it to South Carolina to have it be washed and scoured, and then after that, I'll be getting like I don't also know the difference when people call it roving versus wool top. I'm not entirely. I don't think there is a
Hmm.
difference in that.
I'm not 100% either. I feel like it might be a size difference.
The
Like
size
top
difference.
is, yeah, top maybe is a little wider than
Oh, it was
roving.
like the
Some,
flatter, wide ones. Okay.
which is actually a really good point. I totally forgot to tell our viewers, please submit any questions or comments. So if you have the answer to this question
Yeah.
about the difference between roving and top, please feel free to plug that into the comments and we will take a look at that.
Um, and so what after I have all this wool washed, I mean, and I'm sure everyone, the audience at home, understands how wool is washed, and does this process themselves. But then after I have it, I'll have this top or roving. Um,
Mhm.
and then my plan is to send the bulk of it to Bat and Kill to have it be spun because she just makes an incredible product. And I love Mary Jean very much. Everyone loves Mary Jean. Um, and so, but then I also want to take the rest of it and then send it to smaller spinners and artisans to just see. Because I think, again, it's so interesting to have this control of like a breed or this roving and then see what everyone else does with it. And then I probably will have some of it made into felted sheets. I'll probably have some of it um, dyed and I'll send it to other artists to make like furniture and stuff like this. So I think it'll be really fun to see how that all plays out. And I just want to get it in the hands of so many other people. Um,
Mhm.
and and I'm able to do this because at the washing mill, they're like, oh, it's like 45 cents a pound to have it washed. And I was like, oh, okay. Like some other places are like $13 a pound. And I was like, all right, all right, all right. Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah,
a big difference.
yeah. But they were like, we can only take a minimum of 1,000 pounds.
That's
And I was like, well, I guess it's time to go big or go home. So then I followed around sheep shearers, like, and I was stuffing just wool into bags, like every chance I got.
Uh-huh.
It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. So are you going to distribute all of that Santa Cruz, or do you have a plan with some of it
Part
to
of
create
it,
it?
I think a couple different outcomes. Again, this is also like in the air, but my vision is
Mhm.
to sell skeins just like as yarn for like at-home knitters to use. There's an amazing yarn store down the street from me in New York. My friend, that's Downtown Yarns. And then my friend in New Jersey owns the Blue Pearl in Madison, New Jersey. Amazing yarn store. They have really great trunk shows and really good artists that come in and out of there. And then, so I just want to sell the skeins, and I'll probably send that to a dyer to have like, custom dyes done. And then I was going to use the bulk of it for my own collections that I produce. And then also work with other designers in New York to have them incorporate this yarn into their collections.
Nice. So talk about your own collections a little bit. Someone has asked in the comments, I'm sorry, my light is now flashing on my end.
Are there comments on Facebook?
Yes, they are on Facebook, but I think if you have Facebook on, you're going to get some feedback unless you turn your sound off. But there's two, and actually, the reason I'm asking about your own designs is because somebody specifically asked, and I was actually curious. I was going to ask a little bit later about your sweater. It looks really pretty. Of what I can see, is this something that you've designed and knitted yourself?
This was 100% wool sweater. This was for a brand in Brooklyn called Kid Super, and I started working with them almost 2 years ago. And I told them, and I was still in college, and the brand is amazing. They actually are finalists for the LVMH prize this year.
LVMH. What is LVMH?
Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy.
Okay. Not familiar.
It's like the Walmart prize, like a fashion design prize.
Okay.
But so I started working with them like 2 years ago, and I didn't have a knitting machine at this point. And I said, I'll make these sweaters for you if you buy me a knitting machine and you only make them out of wool. Like, you make them out of wool. So here we are. And then this is a different colorway of one of the sweaters I had produced. And that's the thing. It's such a fun brand that has such another incredible consumer base and, buyers, where so many fun people are wearing them. And then they're all having wool sweaters, which I just think is great. Like, I just wanted to dress the people in wool. And so that was, and I've did 2 different collections for them, all wool knits. And then right now I do a lot of custom stuff for people. Like, that's mainly where I stay at the moment. For people like special events or, like music videos or performances or stuff like that. And that's really fun because I like working on that like small scale type. And then I'm also hopefully releasing a small capsule collection over the summer.
A capital collection.
Or a capsule, like a small.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Well, you are busy and you have your hands on a lot of different things, don't you? Someone has commented on your design of your Met Gala dress when you were talking about making a full-size graph paper. She says, and I have to, I'm assuming it's a she, I don't know, that's probably a bad assumption to make, but names are not coming up in my comments here. So, but the comment is, full-size grid paper works, but you can print grids in the standard ratio of 5 stitches to 7 rows using Excel and make them to scale instead of working at full size. You might take a look at Garment Designer and Stitch Painter software. They're older, but you can import the shape of the garment from Garment Designer and overlay the stitch level design from Stitch Painter.
Oh, that's amazing.
There's one more comment. There's also an interface that provides input into knitting machines, but this person has no experience with that.
Oh, that is like that's like a dream of mine, because right now is like literally like from the 80s. It's like the most rudimental one, and they do have these amazing new ones that are programmable and you can put in your design, stuff like that. So that's on the wish list.
It's coming.
Yeah, it'll be coming soon. Yeah.
So if you have questions for Katja about what she's been working on, anything that she's been doing, any questions about breeds or any part of the process. I mean, Katja, you've had your hands really, you've gone from farm to fiber with your learning and what you've been working with. It sounds like
it's all with the help of you guys and like the amazing farmers. Like I had absolutely no knowledge, like no knowledge at all. For the longest time. And I'm just so thankful to have all you guys' help on this. Yeah.
We're thrilled to help you. Yeah, because you're getting the word out there and you're getting the word out in a way that we could never possibly do it. I mean, none of us are fashion designers. None of us have a fashion background. None of us are really, can't really even call us knitters. There's some beginning knitters amongst us, but you are so far ahead of us.
We're just a good pair because I couldn't do anything without your guys' help because I'm not a farmer. I know. I remember the first time. I don't think I ever like literally like saw a sheep in person until I went to go work on a farm, and I saw like a lamb with a tail, and I was like, I had no idea they had tails. I had absolutely not. And then like they were docking all of them, so they're just like tails all over the farm, and I was like, oh my god, like this is a little too much for me right now. But now I know. Now I know. And I also think one of my, I guess it's like advice that I'd like from you guys is I feel like it's so difficult to have, especially like when you're so passionate about something, to get like to control your like emotion or passion when people say like, oh, like farming is horrible, like using wool is horrible, like you can't be eating, you know, like all these types of things where you're met with a lot of pushback, and it's hard to like get your message out without sounding like, you know, aggressive or like overbearing, but you know, like, and like I feel like using, and the more I work with you guys and the more I work with farmers, like I'm learning this language of how to share information with people. And I think that's also what I try to do through my clothing, is to be able to very gently, and I like whenever I make clothing, I always like will post, like when I post it, it'll be like sheep mill, you know, knitting end result, like just so it's like a very like very black and white, or you know, process of it. Yeah.
It will come. You'll learn with time, and it's more about a lot of people formulate ideas about things based on what they've heard or what they've learned, but that isn't necessarily the full picture. Like with wool, there's an impression in some communities that it's harmful to shear sheep and to use wool, when the opposite is actually the case because of the breeding that we've done to wool. They can no longer shed their wool, so they need humans. As soon as they became domesticated, they needed us to shear them, to save their lives every year, basically, by removing that coat. Otherwise, they would suffer. Yeah.
Like when I have like some acquaintances of mine that are like, oh my god, this is so horrible, like, you know, why don't they all just go live in an animal, I want to start an animal sanctuary. And I'm like, you still gotta shear them, like even if they're not an animal sanctuary.
Unless you get hair sheep. Yeah,
exactly. And I saw this amazing one, people, another, I think I'm just like obsessed with like hot young like farmer couples, is Siri and Colin at Yankee Rock Creek Farm. They're shearers, and like I love seeing all what they do, and the way she shares her information is so amazing. And like she will show like butchering on the spot, she will show shearing, how she like culls her flock, and like telling people like why she does this, and like I just want to help amplify those voices, you know, because it's like I actually like I'm not a farmer. So like half the time I feel like, I don't want to say fraud, but it's like, yeah, like I can talk to you about wool, I can't talk to you about farming.
No, I don't think you're a fraud at all. I mean, you've dug in. You've been living on farms. You've been doing the work of taking care of livestock. You've been doing the work of shearing, of figuring out the processing. It's not like you're just going to a large wholesaler and ordering your yarn. I mean, I think you know a lot more. Not that other designers out there don't do that. I'm just not familiar with them, but I think I think it's very admirable what you've done, that you've really learned your supply chain all the way back to the pasture. I think it's fabulous.
Thank you. Well, again, I couldn't have done it without you guys. Um, and yeah, I definitely hope that there's way more, like with Parsons and these universities, that it's so integrated in our learning experience. And like with brands in New York, because again, like especially like seeing so many people in the city start their own clothing brands, and they're like, oh, it's like sustainable because it's made in America, and like for them that's the extent of what that means, like, you know.
Hmm.
um and so I just like, I'd love to just work with people and just make it so visible and out in the open, for people to really understand. Yeah.
Yeah, the sustainability is a three-legged stool, and locality is one of those legs. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. I love it that you want to do that. We have a couple more comments here. Oh, I know who the recommendations came from. Margaret Radcliffe is the one who recommended the garment designer and stitch painter software.
Okay.
And Margaret is in our Shave 'em to Save 'em program, and Margaret is actually an author. And of course, right now I'm going to draw a blank on the titles, but her books they're fiber books, and they're published by Story Publishing.
Oh,
So if
amazing.
yeah, she is pretty amazing. So if anybody's curious about what Margaret Radcliffe has been writing about, check out Story's website.
I'm very
Um,
curious.
I've got one on my bookshelf behind me, but of course I'm not in my office. It's the bookshelf in my office.
I have
She's
the
done a circular knitting book, and she has a big knitter's answer book. And I know those are not the exact titles, but those are the topics. And there might be a couple more too. What were you going to say? You have what?
Oh no, I have the Deborah Robson, the Fleece and
Uh
Fiber,
huh.
which is like so incredible. Which is
Those are
amazing.
That is a fantastic book. So someone whose name I don't see here, but they say, thank you so much. This was a lovely conversation to listen to. Loved hearing Katja's journey from the fashion side. So very different from mine, from the knitting side. Where did it go? Oh, that was Margaret Radcliffe. That was her. That was her again. Someone is oh, and Margaret's blushing. You're welcome for the shout out. We're glad you're joining in today. Thanks, Margaret. And someone has said, I'm curious to hear Katja's design inspirations for her work.
Oh. um, Definitely. I love, one of my favorite things where it ties into like the heritage breed is like the heritage of the farm. And like when you see, I like to take that really classical design, or like say one of the farms I worked on was in Martha's Vineyard. It's an island, it's the like that cable knit, like fisherman style, like that type. I love to use the background of these farmers and who they are, and the type of wool. Like it all comes from the farm. Um, and then putting it into more of like a more like, I don't want to say modern like context, but really, really highlighting like the background of the people, of the farmers and the wool. And then also, I'm also really drawn to like bright colors, but I also love like the new, like the tonal and like natural colors of sheep as well.
Mm-hmm.
So those are technically the colors I gravitate towards too, is like primaries and then like natural color, and I think they look so nice together.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like very like geometric shapes, like very like a lot of like Russian constructivist art. My father's Russian. So a lot of that, and like kind of also mixing that with like folklore art, because it's also the way I view like incredible knit work is also similar to folklore art, like the how intricate and how beautiful it is. Yeah, that's kind of where my inspiration comes from. And also when I do custom work for people, it comes from their background as well, and who they are and what they represent. And so I think it definitely, really, all my inspiration comes from the people I'm working with. Yeah.
The environment that they are in and their personalities and stuff. That's great. Yeah. Fun. So if folks want to see your work, I feel bad we haven't been able to show anybody any of your stuff today because you've got some beautiful pieces out there. Are your pieces on your Instagram page as well as kind of the story of what you've been doing? I know you said you've been posting, from the shearing to the butchering and that sort of thing on your Instagram, but are your collections?
Yeah, those are all on my Instagram, and soon there will be a website up. And the first thing that I will be selling will be a bunch of sheepskins from Pennsylvania, which I'm really excited to put out and sell. So I'm very excited. But yes, website coming soon. The first launch will be with all these sheepskins. But yeah, most of my work is on my Instagram and kind of like traveling around and all that. That's on Instagram.
Okay. I've got your Instagram link shared right here. Do you have I know your website isn't published yet. Do you have a website name you are ready to share with folks, or an address you're ready to share with folks, or not quite yet?
I also have maybe. I have the page of my Parsons thesis project.
Ah.
So you can see the entire project I did with the Livestock Conservancy and Isabella Rossellini. Where should I send that to you?
Do you see over on the right-hand side, I think you see it where it says private chat? Yeah. Perfect. Let's see if I can make that. Let's see. Banner. Turn it off. Turn it on. Is that it? No, that didn't work. I thought, well, I might not be able to pick it up here, Katja. Let me try again. So, bear with us, folks. I'm trying to create a new banner here, I think. Hide. Show. Is that it? Yeah, Parsons here now. Cool. Awesome. So folks can take a peek at both your Instagram page and this Parsons Here Now project and kind of follow along with what you've been up to and what you're doing and visions for the future. I mean, I know you're enjoying doing your collections for folks and the word that I am looking for, I can't draw can't draw it out of my head. I hate it when you do that. When folks come to you privately and they want you to create something for them, I don't know why I can't think of the word for that. Thank you. Your private commissions. I know you're doing those, but do you have kind of a vision of what the future is going to look like for you and wool?
I think so. I think my ultimate dream is to every season create a new collection, but also moving from farm to farm. So each collection will highlight a new farm and a new breed.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and whether it's summer knits or like winter knits, and they'll each really hone in on one specific breed.
Nice. I like that idea. Very cool. All right, and we are doing a project together sometime later this year. We're not going to tell you too much about it, but you guys are all invited to participate. That's all we are willing to say at this point. So keep your eyes peeled. We'll announce that in another month or two once we have all the details worked out, but we'll announce it on both the Livestock Conservancy page and the Shave 'em to Save 'em page, and of course we'll share that information with our e-news recipients and our newsletter folks as well. So, and I'm sure Katya will share it on her Instagram page as well, so her folks know what we're doing. And if there are no other questions, let me just double check here, see if we've got any more comments, questions. Oh, was this you about the Met Gala? Was that you, Katja?
Which one?
It says, how about this write-up of the Met Gala dress in the New York Times?
Oh, yeah, that is me.
Okay, let me see if I can share that with everybody. Let me take this banner down. Yep, there it is. Okay, so if you want to see what that Met Gala dress looked like, check out the New York Times 2018 May 3rd Fashion Met Gala.
That wasn't the knitted one. The knitted one
Oh.
was Instagram. That one was from Wool. Woo.
Where'd you go? So this was the write-up of it, but not the picture of it?
Yeah.
This link? Okay. Okay. Is the photo on your Instagram page?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So folks can find it if they're interested. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks. This was fun. I enjoyed getting to know. Oh, we got a question. I was going to say I enjoyed getting to know more about your story and your background. Brittany is asking, can you read out those links on the banner so podcast listeners can know where to go? Yes, I can. Okay, so for Katja's Parsons project, it's parsonshereandnow.com /Katya-Ekimian / And then let me go back to the other banners. Well, and take this one off. And for your Instagram page, you can find Katja at instagram.com / Katya.Ekimian /HO=EN. And these will all be visible in the replay of this video in our Facebook feeds. And were those the only two? Yeah. You're welcome, Brittany. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for today since there are no other questions. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you're joining us live or you're watching the replay later on. If you do have questions, you're curious, I can definitely find answers for you. Email me at ckirscher@livestockconservancy.org, or you can just message me in the Facebook feed, put a comment up there, and I'll find your chat, and I will ask Katja your question if you missed the live stream today. Katja, thank you so much. This was fun.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I learned so much about what you've been up to and your inspirations and what you've got planned. Very cool. Thanks for coming and sharing your passion and your vision with us today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next month.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, y'all.